And we're going to review the previous minute.
Just read it.
Do I have to read? As required by the law? Oh, sorry. As required by law, the town may audio or video record this meeting. Any person intending to either audio or video record this open session is required to inform the chair. We'll review the minutes from the previous meeting. Any corrections? Can I just have a typo? On page 4, the very first says Ms. Anson. Okay, COVID update?
So we'll just need to vote on the minutes.
Oh, jeez. All right, that's what happens when I skip a meeting, my apologies. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes from last month?
Motion to accept.
Second it.
Second it,
As corrected.
As
That's correct.
as corrected. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Opposed? No?
Aye.
Okay, so everyone on the board has agreed to approve the minutes. And
Did you oppose, Sharon?
Huh?
Were you accepting
Yeah,
or
I said-
opposed? Oh,
yeah.
okay.
okay.
Did you want to go out of order?
I have the public
On-
works section. I have,
So it's the next, I'm happy to do the COVID update next if
well,
you
that's
want.
because I had last month's in front of me.
Okay.
I'm off to a good start, my apologies. So, Board of Health work session with the revising fuel storage tank regulations.
So we do have our fire inspector here in the audience if anyone has any questions. The proposed document in your packet would replace the existing fuel storage system regulations that we currently have in place. There were some amendments made from the previous meeting.
So this is the current one that we
This
have
would be
in
the
front of us.
amended one, correct?
How does it differ? How does it differ from the past and why?
Good evening, Bruce Young, the fire inspector. In the past, I didn't have any regulation over whether I can have a fuel storage tank replaced at the sale of the property.
Okay.
And now I can, after this huge real estate transaction flux that we just went through. One of the things I do is I have to inspect every property in town for smoke and CO, and I also go down to the basement and look at their furnace, whether it's natural gas, propane, or oil. And if it's oil, I always look at the oil tank. And some of these tanks are 30, 40, 50 years old, and you're just waiting for them to break. Last year, we've had 3 tanks let go, 2 with significant damage to the homes. One, they're probably gonna have to tear the garage off. The other one, they gotta take up the basement floor and take out the soil underneath. That could be a complete tear down too. I'm trying to prevent what happened to that couple up in Wareham with, $220,000 later that, from a fuel oil tank rupturing. They're getting older, we're on Cape Cod, we get limited water. I think it's a good thing to change this up, and I'm not trying to, put another cost onto the homeowner or the person selling the property. It's about a $3,000 bill, but I think it's something that's worthwhile.
Yes, I agree with that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Is there any way that you would do inspections, almost like we do with septic systems? Is there any way you would do, even if it was every 5 years, 10 years? that you-
I can go out and do an inspection if the homeowner called and asked for an
But
inspection.
that's the only way?
Usually the only way is when it's a real estate transaction now.
Okay, all right. All right, I was just kind of curious, because if you lived in it for 20 or 30 years, you're going to have that same tank there.
Yes. I just did a resale inspection on one that was in the house for 70 years, and it never let go.
Oh, wow,
They just changed to a double wall tank.
wow. Okay,
Lucky.
Lucky. Yeah, very lucky.
okay. All right.
Any other comments? Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept the new,
So this is just the work session at this point. You don't have to take any action.
Okay.
Just take it under consideration. We will have to go through the public hearing process in order to promulgate the regulation. So this can be your final work session if everyone's comfortable with the amendments that have been made. And then we can hold a public hearing in April.
I do have one other question, and I know sorry.
That's okay.
I know I had asked the question the other week when you weren't here, with the definitions that were there, because there were definitions there that didn't really apply to what was here. But we still have a section 2 that says definitions, and we don't have anything there currently in this one. Are we going to define, I don't know what really needs to be defined with what is in this? Definitions is on page 2, it's
Yep.
like section 2. And now it just says definitions and there's nothing there. Is there anything that you feel belongs there that would help people to identify the things that you're talking about here?
I apologize, mine has all the definitions in it.
Section 2.
Want to see the one that we have?
Okay.
Yeah. Mine has all the definitions of fuel oil and, yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
That we talking about?
So is that a definition?
Yep.
Okay, so those are
Yep,
definitions.
these are all the-
Oh,
does,
these are the okay.
Yeah.
2.1.
Well, it looks like,
All right, so when
I
it sa-
think I follow you. It looks like 2.2 and 2.3, the above-ground storage tank and the underground storage tank are definitions, but then it goes right into like the regulations for it.
Well, I think, when I looked at the 2.1, it says the following regulations, so I didn't
Yeah.
take that as a definition. Am I making sense? Look at the one that I have. And this just says definitions. All right, and when I read this, which I can't read upside down, the following regulations,
Underground, number 2 fuel oil tank.
okay, so I don't look at that, I didn't read that as a definition,
Oh, you're looking at it as a
as
regulation?
a regulation.
I see it.
All right, that was,
So would you want 2.2 and 2.3 to be under definitions and then have a separate section that says section 3 regulations? And
that
then,
might make, for me,
more
that would
sense,
make
yeah.
sense.
I can give you the notes after.
Okay, sorry for the confusion.
Yeah.
And then enforcement, are you okay with, would become number 4?
All right,
So it'd be section 1 authority, section 2 definitions with those 2 above ground and underground, then create section 3 for the regulations, and 4 would be enforcement.
yes,
Okay.
I think that would make more sense.
Okay,
Anybody else?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I see what
any confusion? Sorry about that.
I thought, all the definitions disappeared, we only have is regulations, but all right.
So would the board feel comfortable with those changes to still have a public hearing, or would you feel like you need to have another work session?
I don't
Yeah,
think we
good.
need, I don't think we
No,
need
I think we
another
get-
work
yeah.
session. I think the public here, just make those changes. It's
We can
just-
touch base before
yeah.
then.
How many people have oil as opposed to gas in Harwich? Do you know?
There's a lot of oil tanks still. I'd say 50%,
50%?
yeah. With the gas moratorium, there's a lot more propane tanks,
Yes.
but they're slowly being weeded out and more natural gas. They're not replacing the propane tanks with oil tanks, they're going to natural gas.
That's good. That's
what,
good.
what does one do with a old oil tank?
That's all has to be removed by a licensed, the installer has to be licensed, and they take that oil tank away, and it has to go to a licensed yard.
Okay.
It gets cleaned, and then it gets the scrap metal. But it all has to be licensed. I get the address of where the tank's going. I keep that in the file in case something happens later on with a resale.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thanks, Bruce.
All set? Any more?
Anyone else?
I'm good.
We can touch base
Okay,
and make
thank
the
you.
changes.
Take care, Larry.
you wanna, Larry, you're up next, I guess?
I can be. I'm just hoping you don't vote to deny to listen to it.
How's it gonna feel to be on the other side? The hot seat.
Say anything I want. Forget being polite. Good evening. Thanks for letting me take some time to talk about running a meeting. I did this, I think, 3-4 years ago. And Pam, you were here, and Dr. Kay thought it might be worthwhile to just run through some cliff notes and share some of our experiences. I will say that doing what I'm asking you to do is easier said than done. I know this, and I was chair for the last 2 years before that. We didn't always do it either. Sometimes you get rushed, sometimes it gets heated, and you forget to go through all the steps. And so, in all this, my take-home message is to don't let that happen. Take your time, run through the agenda items. I'm asking Pam as the chair to be sure to force discussion so everyone has an input into it will be one of my main points. Because that's something that some of our committees forget. And I know, Kevin, I'm on the board of directors out of Cape Health, so that's one of the things I'm forcing there too. Because they want the board, in that case, I'll use that as an example, they want to be sure, they being the regulatory community, wants to be sure that the board is paying attention. They're just not following orders from our excellent CEO, but they're part of the discussion. And we have and each of our committees has the same responsibility. We have to be sure that people watching this and reading it feel that your board is really paying attention. We have expert staff, expert opinion, but I'll keep hitting on that point. What I'd like to do is talk a little bit about open meeting, and I have some notes so I don't forget, but open meeting regulations. Very briefly, the Royal We, are asking, Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator is asking KP Law to give a formal training on open meeting sometime soon after the spring town meeting. Because it's, as you know, recently, if you've been watching the news, you can get in trouble in a quick hurry. If you don't, and folks can't take a joke. They want to be sure that you follow and for good reason. We don't want private discussions and all this, so I'll touch on some things, but that will be discussed much more detail in a couple months. Let me just start then, and interrupt me anytime you want. I'm used to it. First, basically on the open meeting law, as you know, we have no leeway on this. The meetings have to be posted 48 hours before the meeting. And that's absolute. And that does push pressure downward. And that means that the staff and you guys have to draft an agenda, and so it's posted. And as you know, that's multiple steps. I would plead that when Katie or Jen contacts you or something, that you respond as soon as possible, because they need your response before they can post a meeting. So if you don't get back to them right away, we miss a day. And you know this better than I do. As a regulatory committee, some of your actions are time limited. You have to take action or you lose what you may want to do. So I would plead you to respond as soon as possible. In that, an agenda has to be detailed. It has to be detailed exactly what you're going to talk about. And this is another item that sometimes we forget, and we do this as selectmen too, is you have a general, a good topic, and you get carried away and you want to extend that to basically related issues, but not on the agenda. And you can't do that. Yeah, if it's not specifically on the agenda, you have to come back, repost it and go through it again. Just as a quick point, we are allowed to have people attend meeting by remote. I know that comes up occasionally, but you can do that if you have a quorum here. And either the chair or the chair's designee is acting as chair. You can have you can attend this by remote if you're on, if you follow, if you look at the meeting or policy, there are 5 different reasons for doing that. And I quite frankly don't remember them right now. But it's health and, there's several reasons. But, and some of that's, it's a little bit broad. If the chair is comfortable with the reason, pretty much we let that go. But you have to notify everyone, and you can't do that. And you can do that only a couple times a year. You can't do that over and above that. Once the meeting is over, it's critical that the minutes are written, and that they're written in a concise way. And of course, you have help on that, and that you guys you vote on the minutes in a timely fashion, and then they're published. It does no good, and it actually raises some anger in the community if you sit on minutes for a long time, because then people don't know what you've done and why you've done it. The minutes don't have to be carried away, but they do have to be detailed and address each agenda item. Let me just, that's my very brief on open meeting law. You can read the open meeting law online, or I'm sure Katie can get it to you as well if you have any questions. And Jen, I don't want to leave you out. Let me just talk a little bit about conduct of the meeting, and this kind of goes back to Robert's Rules of Order. But tonight's a good case because Pam opened exactly on time, which is perfect. That's a pet peeve of mine on all meetings. If any meeting is not on time, I think that shows lack of respect for the other committee members. It wastes time because then you go back and repeat. And so it's critical that you're all here and open meetings on time. As I mentioned, you need to be sure that you follow the agenda items and discuss each item in detail. Following my notes now, I'm repeating myself, so forgive me. Meeting is restricted to the agenda. It's interesting that who's ever reading the agenda item, I assume Mr. Chair most times, that the item be stated clearly and concisely, not only for you, but especially since we're on TV, that people understand what the item is you're discussing and what the purpose is. I think your next action then, after you've discussed what the agenda item is to ask the advice of our director, Katie. And so you get that input. Following that, I would ask then, after you get Katie's input on it, is for the chair, you Pam, to then ask individually, each of you, what your comment is and opinion. Sometimes it's easy to fall into a trap of just sort of forgetting to force a discussion, and that needs to be
We
done.
usually have the person that, whatever the subject is, the variances or something, to speak before there's a discussion of the board.
And and you can do that. I'm reading one option out. It comes to the same thing, just as long as you do it routinely the same way each time. My list is slightly different in that. Let me get back to that, Pam, because I don't want to confuse. I'm talking about general running the meeting, and then when we have a public hearing, which is somewhat different.
Right, right.
Let me come back. My next section, I did want to spend some time on the more formal public hearing. You have a lot of discussions that aren't public hearings, so I went at that first. But your point's well on that, yes?
All right, so putting the hearings aside, let's say it just, all right, something that we just, is on the board,
Right.
just the board. So are you suggesting that if she reads whatever we're going to discuss,
Right.
we then ask Katie first, or have her read what we're going to discuss, then discuss it, and then go to Katie, or doesn't it matter as long as you do it consistently?
Well, it's kind of up to you, but my sequence would be for Pam to read the agenda item first, I would ask for what Katie's view of it is, and then I would ask for each of your discussion points.
All right, all right.
And then you can, and then go from there. You can,
Before having the person speak
Right.
on what it,
yeah.
Well, you're not talking
I'm
about
not talking
that.
public hearing yet, I'm just
He's not
talking.
talking, he's not talking the
I'm
public
talking,
hearing.
I'm just talking about,
Regular meeting.
not a
Regular
public
meeting.
hearing, just a
Regular meeting.
regular.
Regular meeting, yeah.
Yeah, like if we just have something for the board to discuss.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know, like
the fuel
like-
thing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
like the fuel thing would be good.
yeah, the
Good
fuel
example.
or the tobacco or whatever, and we're just gonna discuss it here at the board. Let's say we don't have people out there. It's not a hearing, it's not a hearing. So then we
Well,
would do
there's-
it, but
okay.
let's say we were discussing something like tobacco. It's not a hearing, we're just gonna discuss it,
Right.
all right? Would we discuss it first and then ask anybody in the audience if they have any comments, or
You're kind of,
not a hearing? It's just,
right. I'd probably follow sort of the hearing format that I'll get to. I think you'd ask the item, you'd ask for Katie's view on it.
Mm-hmm.
You'd get the applicant or the person to
no,
present their case.
we're not doing that. Let's say we're talking about, we were gonna update our tobacco regulations. I'm gonna
Right.
just throw that out, all right?
We're good.
And we're just talking, all right? It's gonna be the board discussing it.
Right,
After we do that, let's say there's people in there that wanna make a comment about it. And so it's not a hearing,
you should let them make a comment.
but it would be after we talk.
I would make it after you talk, because then you can discuss it again after they.
After they talk,
After
all
they
right,
talk.
okay, all right, that was, yeah, so we would discuss it and then open it to anybody in the,
Because that gives you an opportunity to get a feeling amongst yourselves about what the questions are and what your concerns are.
all right,
And then they can explain themselves, and
all
then
right,
they come back.
all
I
right,
would do that. I'd bring back discussion. I'd ask Katie if she has additional information on it.
all right.
In some sense, the initial, I'm picking on you, Katie, but in some sense, the initial comment from Katie is more of a guideline discussion, you know, what's appropriate to discuss. Kind of put boundaries about what you're going to discuss and the time you're going to allow, you know, what the points are to kind of, you know, corral that discussion. And then you can discuss it, you can ask them to discuss, and then you come back and ask about what, you know, what opinions you have on it, on that particular item.
All
So I
right.
think you need to frame it first,
Yeah, all right,
you talk about it, and certainly you want to respectfully give everyone in the audience a chance to discuss.
and I guess I'm looking at that as opposite to what you do when that's an actual hearing, where you open the hearing and then have the,
It's closer
Person.
than you think. Let's move on, let me finish this and
okay,
we'll go
all
back to
right,
the hearing.
all right,
I separate it that way just to keep my mind straight about normal discussion plus
Okay.
a hearing. And then I think I'm gonna not talk for every night, but once you've had a discussion, you've made a decision, and then you need to make a clear motion of what you want to do, and I think whoever makes that motion, it should be seconded. And Sharon, you remember this from past. I do have one pet peeve, and that is you don't make a motion,
yeah,
you move a motion.
you move a motion.
It's a minor thing, but the proper way to present that is you move a motion. You
Yeah.
don't, and it always bothers me when someone's making a
Or
motion.
make a motion, yeah.
It's okay, it's a pet peeve that that no one cares about.
I do remember that. I'm gonna write that one down.
I think for clarity and actually for the help on the minutes, once the motion's made and seconded, the next step is for you, Pam, to repeat that motion to be sure everyone understands it and everyone's on board.
Some of them are quite complicated.
Well, it just takes, and it is, but what I'm trying to do, as I said at the outset, I think it's important as a regulatory committee that you do slow things down and be sure that you have a good discussion and that it's formalized,
All right,
because, you know, you can get picked on. You know?
all right, so you would have a person, after the discussion, somebody is going to move a motion. Are they going to read the motion? I move a motion to,
I would leave that to, you know, you could
I'm-
have Pam, or you could repeat it, just be sure it's clear.
all right,
That everyone, I would quiz it, if you want, you could just ask, does everyone understand the motion? I mean, that's what we're getting at. You can make it as simple as you want, but that's really, just get where we want to go. And that is, sometimes it's easy to, and I fall into this trap, you know, someone will say it and someone else, well, okay, that's my motion. Yeah, okay, I'm guilty of doing that,
Yeah.
but it's not right.
Yeah, you're supposed to, yeah.
You're supposed to state it, especially when you're, when it's being recorded for the minutes, that it's clear that, you know, what the motion is.
All right.
And boy, don't press me, 'cause I cheat that too, but I'm trying, I'm asking you not to.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly.
Can I just get clarification?
Sure.
We usually, when somebody says, they accept the motion, they repeat it, the
Right.
person who's saying it, and then someone else seconds it.
Right.
So then I therefore have to say the motion again.
No, I'm just saying, I think that's up to you.
Okay,
That would be the, as you say, that's a complicated way. I think it'd be comfortable just to query, does everyone understand the motion?
okay.
And then that leaves it to you to be honest. If you don't understand the motion, speak up. Because sometimes your motions can be complicated.
Yes.
And so that's the whole point of why, I don't think I want to force that issue about repeating it, because the point is, does everyone understand it?
Okay,
All right, all right.
Is that okay, Pam?
thank you.
The other thing we do as not all the time, but we started about 10 years ago, I guess. I've been around too long. But I would suggest you think about considering this for the Board of Health too. We just start rotating the chair every year. We haven't always done that. But I do think it's important to rotate the chair at least at some point, because it's a lot of work being chair and wear you out. And it also brings in differences of opinion. It's up to you, but that's a suggestion to consider going forward. I know I was chair, I got the privilege of doing it 2 years, but that was because of COVID and things going on. I have to admit, not being chair this year is actually,
A relief.
yeah.
I think in our case, we've had,
We've had turnover and stuff.
yeah, all
Right.
new turnover pretty much.
I'm not saying you have
And,
to, I'm
I
saying
mean,
if you,
that's fine, because now there's more experience with everybody, yeah.
yeah. I make that not to, because you've done a good job, not putting on defense.
Oh, no, I
I'm just
know.
saying the practice is, and there's some merit to that,
Mm-hmm.
both for workload, and also each chair has a little different opinion on what's important or not.
Sure.
And that helps out. My second sheet, and I'm not gonna drag this on, because is now trying to get an order of process for a public hearing. And again, as you know, and I'm sure Katie, you know better than I do at this point, you can clarify, but, you know, public hearings do have to be posted in the newspaper. And so, in sequence then, what the chair does is open the public hearing by reading the notice, as you've been doing. And then, as we suggested during our previous discussion, the list I have, the next step then is to ask Katie for her guidelines. Excuse me. Let me say that the next step, let me back up. I would push that back to the chair. I think the next step is for the chair to provide the guidelines for giving testimony in a time allowed. And that gives you a chance to make a sort of a general statement that, for instance, the testimony is only on this item, and maybe multiple items to define what they're going to talk about. Only this agenda item, and not get, sometimes people can get sidetracked. And I think that also gives you a chance, Pam, to say that, give them a time limit. Or whatever it is, you're gonna give them 5 minutes to speak, 10 minutes to speak. You can say, okay, you have 1 5-minute chance, we'll give you another chance if you want. Define what they are, so that you get off on some direction, so someone doesn't give a half-hour speak. And my favorite topic is when you have the 20th person making the same point that
Oh,
and,
all right.
and I know I used
what
to
you're-
always make the point that I may not be the sharpest person in the room, but after 5 or 6 times, I actually I get the point. You don't make the same one. And people feel, and lots of people feel they're here, so they need to make their point, even if, so, it gives you a chance to give some guidance. in some time.
Larry, all right, now I can come up with a scenario where we've got two different types of hearings. We have the one where a person or two, or a couple or whatever, are coming in for a hearing on variances, all right, and it's just maybe them and their lawyer.
Right.
All right, then they would sit up here, and the way we've been doing it is reading the, what they want to discuss, what the variances are going to be. Then we invite them up to the table to present what they have. But we don't necessarily give them a time limit and let them go, and then, you know, at some point, we'll close the hearing. Well, all right, you open the hearing,
Let
you
me
have
go
them.
through my list and then.
Because, all right, just so I have it, I see a difference between that type of hearing and a public hearing like what you're talking about, where different people get up to the podium and speak. And then I see where you could say, you've got 5 minutes, or you've got 10 minutes, or we've heard that before.
Right.
But like on the hearings where somebody comes up for a variance or something like
We
that.
didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, what I'm saying is, you have some guidance on, you can define that, but you still should give some guidance on what they talk about. And,
Oh, all right,
you know,
all
to
right.
define it. It doesn't
Right.
hurt, it's a general statement to kind of, even those people that are presenting their case.
Okay,
You may not want to give a time limit in that case, maybe the public want to give a time limit.
yeah,
Yeah,
all right.
we usually don't have problems with people.
I'm gonna say, usually they're kind of,
They're set, because it's basically legal input.
I could think of maybe 1 or 2 times where we could say, all right, you know, the discussion is over.
Well, again, though, what I'm asking you to do is read the posting, and then start, Pam, by saying, you know, this is the item you're going to discuss, limited to that, and, you know, whatever else you want to say. You know, if it's not specific,
right.
but keep to the point, be concise. You know, help set the stage in the atmosphere of the discussion, if you will. I think the next point then is then to ask Kate to give a report, and again, as we talked in the last part, I think that's more of a procedural, kind of defining the regulatory aspects, what they're talking about. Not the merits of in that case, I would not ask you to talk about the merits of the case yet, but let them, you know, what are the limits, what are you talking about? And that'd give a chance to, if you have some regulatory issues that, you may have some items that you know they haven't filled out yet. That's the time to bring those up, that, well, there's some deficiencies in their application, because that gives them a chance to address that and talk to it.
All right, so we would ask them if there's, or ask Katie, you know, are there any issues that you see with this before they come up, that way they can address that.
And that sets the stage for your discussion as well.
All right,
And then, as we talk, let the applicant make the presentation. You know, you set the guidelines, you've set if there's any deficiencies they need to address. They can do that. And then I would, I think the next step is then for you folks to ask the applicant your questions. And again, I would ask that you do that you know, one by one, be sure everyone, and it's okay to say you have no questions, but I just want to be sure we go through the process that we're sure everyone has a chance to ask a question.
I think the way the board does it is handy, where they always he always starts with the same person and comes down. That way, I don't know, I just think it works out, it's
I
neater.
like it because it puts Kevin on the spot to be the first.
Because he sits down there and you're at first. But I just thought it made
No,
it
that's
run smooth.
That's perfect. Just get everyone involved and run it through. That's perfect.
All right, yeah, I thought when the
And
board
then-
started that, I thought that made a lot of sense.
And then I think in sequence, after you've each had a chance to ask your question and get some response, and then the next step is ask the public if they want, what they're, if they have for comment. And that again, Pam, is where you can give some guidance and, you know, stick to the subject. As I always say, don't repeat whatever point everyone else has made.
We're
Ron?
talking about an open meeting or a closed meeting? then?
Open
No.
meeting.
So we haven't had an open,
A hearing is an open meeting, right?
okay, so if we haven't had like a big audience in here,
But people have the right to.
People have the right to.
okay.
You know, let's say if
We've been
somebody
here
come up
when you
and,
talk about tobacco, for instance, you can get a pretty big audience in a
Oh,
hearing.
yeah, they bring in the whole family.
Yeah, or if there was somebody come up with a variance, there might be somebody that lives next to them.
Right, yeah,
that-
we've had that twice, I think.
Yeah, that might question that, so,
Well, knock on wood, it's always easy if you don't have a crowded room. But
yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
we don't use.
Not normally you don't get a crowded room to tell you how well you're doing.
So now, all of that, even our questions, that's still while the hearing is open before.
It's open. You ask
All
your
right.
questions, you then ask if there's people,
All right,
if anyone in the audience, after they've had their input, that's when you would then
close it.
close it, move to close the hearing. Because you've had your questions answered, you've heard from the, anyone
Okay.
who's interested in the audience. Go ahead, Pam.
I think we have been listening to the variances and why.
Yeah,
I open the meeting, then listen to, well, Kate usually says what the subject is, then listen to the
Argument.
argument, and then
Get an opinion from.
get opinions from people, and then the public, and then close the hearing. Is
Right.
that what you're saying?
that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. Yeah. And I want to make that point because, again, I can look at our own mistakes as Board of Selectmen. We sometimes forget to close the hearing.
Yeah,
We should. You know,
You
we-
remind me.
We don't, I'm not coming to you and saying we run a perfect meeting, right? I'm telling you what we're trying to do, and what I'm asking you to try to do. You know, sometimes you'll forget. But it's a good,
Oh, yeah, no,
it's a good sequence to do that, because then you close the hearing, and you can state that, you know, everyone's had their chance to speak, that's it. And then you have a chance to ask now for Katie to give her opinion on where they stand. First is more guidance, regulatory issues, and then you ask for his opinion, and you can discuss it amongst yourselves some more, and then.
all right, I was just going to ask you that. After that, because I think I see this at the board, selectmen meeting. So after she would close the hearing, and Katie would give her,
Right,
right, then sometimes you guys, it's not open to the public anymore, but the
then we can discuss,
committees,
then we can discuss it, then you discuss it yourselves.
then you can say, any further discussion? I sometimes hear you guys say that. All right,
But that's not open, but at
That's
that
not-
point, the public's out of it.
all right,
That's just for your discussion,
all right.
and that's when you decide.
Further discussion by the
Right.
board, all right.
And you can, you know, discussion, issues, and then that's the point where, if you're so inclined, someone can move the agenda item, and you can vote it up or down.
Okay,
You can, at the same time, if you're not uncomfortable, you can vote to continue it to a date certain, and vote that up and down, and have that discussion. So you do have some options there. But it's an easy sequence, as Sharon, you know, watching the hearing, especially, we don't always follow on the
no,
board of
because
selectmen
I
either.
do try to pay attention, and sometimes you guys vary it, which really throws me off.
And we're not supposed to. But what happens is, and we get it with all the, especially regulatory committees and the Board of Selectmen, is, you know, sometimes there's some controversial issues come up.
Yeah. Okay,
You know, and it's easy then to and move, and then you get behind schedule and you want to move ahead, and it's easy to forget, especially when someone's maybe yelling at you. to-
all right, now,
But your committees really, and actually our committees are, but, you know,
these are
it's
kind of
really good-
mild compared to the Board of Selectmen
it's really
meetings.
great though to have respectful committees, and that's the key. Even if the people addressing you aren't respectful, your job is to be.
All right, now I noticed that the board is making a point of when you vote. I think Mike would say, Matt, Kevin, he goes down and gives their names. Is that the way it's supposed to be?
Not necessarily. We do that, we started doing that when it was remote, because we had to do,
Oh,
because everyone's not in the same room, so we had to do it individually. We continue that practice now because we've had, not every meeting, but we've had meetings, I think 2 weeks ago, Julie was, joined us by remote. Anytime someone was on the camera remotely, you have to take a roll call vote.
Okay, so that's only if there's somebody on camera.
Right. You don't have to do that when you're all in the same room. You're right, we started doing that because actually it is a little, well, let me say it differently. We did it last night because a couple years, because we were voting on the town warrant articles to place them on the warrant. And for some, I'm getting off track myself now. But some years ago, Finance Committee for a long time has had to record the, each vote, who voted for.
Who voted for what?
How many, not who, but how many voted for and how many voted against.
And they wanted names of who voted for and against
And
it.
we didn't follow that practice right away, and actually, I think it was a town warrant article a couple of years ago that said, you selectmen, we want you to do the same thing. It's not enough to say majority. We want to know the vote was 3-2 or,
And they wanted to know who was voting which way.
right. So but if it's just a general vote, we don't always,
All right, so,
and if everyone's present, you don't need to do that. You can
All right.
just say all in favor, aye.
all right, all right,
If someone's remote, you have to do roll call.
all right. And roll call is by using the name.
Right, Kevin, Matt, so
All
on.
right. So you don't have to do that.
No requirement you do that when you're all in the same room.
All right,
It's up to
okay.
the chair. If you feel more comfortable doing that,
all right,
I mean, that's your call, not, I have no direction on that, but that's the reason we did it that way.
all right. I did notice that there was a change, that you guys are doing that more.
Again, the key points I really wanted to stress is be sure that you're working with staff, these two fine staff members. Can't say women, can you say women now without getting in trouble?
Yeah, we won't get mad at you.
I don't get hung up on that.
It's really sensitive here anymore. But, respond when they ask you questions on the agenda, get back to them right away because of the time constraints and the 48 hours, and we know that the open meeting law is very serious. Yeah, we're going to, with this finance committee, they're going to, we'll get some action on that, I'm sure. And
All right,
it's just, why bother? And the other thing is I've tried to put this in sequence, and Kate has this, you can, it's not private or private, you can send it, but the key there is it puts a lot of pressure on the chair to run these steps, but do it very carefully and thoughtfully, even if it takes you a little more time. It'll make the minutes more concise, because we'll have all that in writing, and then there'll be there'll be none. That may overstate that. There'll be fewer people saying, well, you screwed that up. That's not actually what you did. And I know all committees get that. This is discussion, but no, you didn't state that properly, so get it right. So that was my whole purpose, to try to, and hopefully this helps. I feel better doing this if I were an expert myself, and I'm not. But hopefully this helps a little.
That was very helpful, yeah, thank you.
I have another question.
See, that's a problem right there.
I know that. All right, so when I'm looking at this Robert's Rules, all right, so number one, it says the member is going to word the motion. And this is at the motion. Then it says the motion must be seconded. The chairman restates the motion. Then they're talking about the discussion and debate occurs. That's after you move the motion.
Yeah,
So that's kind of, when I read this
And
before.
that's why I've got my order. I like mine better
Right,
than
that's
that.
why
Oh,
I
all
asked
right,
before,
all
do
right.
we do it this way?
All right,
Yeah.
so all right,
I would ask Katie to send this. I like my order better.
all right, yes, please do that, yes, because when I looked at this, I thought I don't see it work like that.
No, and I was stressed again that the points that we want to do is, the two I made, and then a sequence of this gets everyone involved, but in an orderly fashion.
I just
In
hate.
my mind, that's the whole
cluster.
point of Robert's Rules of Order, is that you can track it. It's not like having people jump here and there and everywhere, because then you do lose track. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
And that's when you end up with funny motions or people misunderstanding afterwards. And it's,
I think with the discussion, and I'm probably the worst offender, I think it works better for me when you ask each person, because I have a tendency to,
No.
I have a question.
I have one last question. It says that in the minutes, you don't have to mention the person who did the second motion?
No, I don't know. We always say, we always give the second in the
Yeah,
minutes.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we certainly do. Well, I'm surprised it says, I pulled that out of some document, but I throw it away.
So let me ask you something. Is there anything that you can think of in the way the meeting is run that could cause a problem with ethics? I'm talking about the way it's run, like if you open the discussion and, is there anything in there that has to be done in a certain order or certain wording that would cause you to, maybe not ethics, but not follow open meeting laws, that you have to be really careful of what you say or the order in which you do it?
Not that I'm aware of,
All
because I
right.
think the open meeting laws, the key items, and I tried to get those, was that you have a specific agenda, you follow those, you don't vary from that and bring in another topic or broaden it
Right.
beyond that.
All right, yeah.
If you're denying an application, you have to state the reasons for it,
Yeah,
or else
okay,
it's not
there you go, yeah.
valid.
All right, okay.
But Katie brings up a good point, and it kind of goes by of, because that's outside of the open meeting law. That's meeting the regulatory requirements. And that's
Oh,
what
all
we're
right,
at-
all right,
and
all
that's
right.
what we're
That's
asking.
yeah,
And let me just expand that a little bit, because, Katie jumped on that to explain why you had to do that for denial. And so Katie and Jen, and who's the other one?
Carrie,
Carrie. I've met her, right? They are our experts. And, just very visibly, experts. The point I want to make, though, is, because we have the same thing with Amy in conservation, clearly knows what she's talking about, but they depend on, your role as Board of Health is to take that expertise and then bring into it, within those guidelines, local knowledge and local information. And sometimes our committees forget that, and it's easy to just rely solely on what Katie says, for instance, not to pick on Katie, but this is Board of Health. It comes the same way with the other ones. And that's critical, because her job partly is to be sure you're within the regulatory, you're complying to all the regulations. Those regulations aren't black and white, in the sense that there is some local input. And that's what your role is in this, and that's why it's so critical you have a good discussion. And you can, I'm sure you won't hurt Katie's feelings or Jen's feelings if you don't always agree within those parameters with her advice. You could say, okay, that's all, but we meet the regulations if we do something slightly differently. And that's your role. Your role's not passive. It's to get all the input and have a good discussion. And, let's face it.
I think we did that with the
95% of it
fertilizer. We did that with the fertilizer stuff.
It's absolutely
Then we were
critical.
shut
You have to be sure that you pay attention to what Katie's role is and what your role is. And they're working together, but they're both very important.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I forgot, it's one of the points I wanted to make, and
All right.
okay. I think I probably used more time than I should.
That's okay, it was great, thank you.
Thank
Good
you, Larry.
review.
thank you, Larry.
All right. You're gonna send that,
We'll have it in your packet next week, yep,
okay.
Larry's version.
Great, 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 great.
Not next month,
I was just gonna, all right, next week?
next month.
All right.
And, Board of Health discussion on
About the COVID-19 update?
COVID-19 update?
So it's
I was going out of order.
It's a pretty brief update. We are currently tracking 17 cases over the past 10 days. The 14-day incidence rate is 11.3 per 100,000 individuals compared to all of Massachusetts, which is 16.1 per 100,000. So we're doing better than most of Mass at the moment. Starting January 15th, most individuals with health insurance can send away or go to a pharmacy to receive either no or low-cost COVID tests. I have Blue Cross, and it was really easy. I logged into the portal, and 8 tests are on the way. We're happy to help anyone who wants to go through that process, get some ordered. Up to date, 9,859 of our full-time residents are fully vaccinated, which is fantastic. We're over 81% fully vaccinated for eligible residents, and 78% of our entire town are vaccinated right now. The face mask covering advisory was updated on March 1st. We provided a copy of that updated memo in the packet, as well as a memorandum from MAHB, which is the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards, regarding some threats that have been sent out for legal allegations. So there's question and answers in there.
I found that very interesting.
There's a lot of them going around right now. So they've provided responses for each of the allegations, which is nice to see written out. And that's it for my COVID update, pretty minor.
Thank you.
So do you get updates from the county or the state on a weekly basis yet?
The county sends out, it's somewhere between weekly or twice a week for case updates.
I'm just wondering, because they're starting to see an increase in Europe.
Yeah,
Whether
China
we're-
has a big increase right now.
So does Europe. So I'm wondering, you're still getting, you still get regular updates, all right.
The wastewater updates for a few of the other municipalities further out west are starting to show increased rates, so
Yeah,
we'll see what happens. Summer's coming, and hopefully everyone's outside, so.
yeah. I hope so. Okay.
Do you want to discuss the,
Yeah, do you want to read that whole little section, just to keep it?
Board of Health discussion on continuing to acknowledge and appoint the town clerk to fulfill the role of special agent signing death certificates and burial permits?
So, as you all know, Anita Doucette, our town clerk, has retired after 31 years designated to the town. She had been taking care of all the burial permits for us. So we would need a motion to, let me get the verbiage for you.
Do we have somebody?
So James Mullen would be the temporary. When we do get a new full-time clerk in May, we'll have to come back and do this again. But for the time being, James Mullen will be the interim town clerk.
What's it, Jim
Mullen, James Mullen.
Okay. Okay.
So we would just need to have to continue to acknowledge and appoint James or Jim Mullen to fulfill the role of special burial agent.
So do you need a vote? Okay.
I'll make a motion to,
Move a motion.
Move the motion.
I'd like to move a motion to
That's okay.
The
Point.
motion.
Jim Rowland as the special agent for burial and death certificates.
Okay, second?
Second,
Okay,
second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye. I said aye. I was just waiting to see the rest were,
Oh, they all said aye, and then
oh, we
I,
did, okay.
and then I
She
asked if
got
they
in,
were.
is anybody opposed before you said your aye, though?
I was like,
You're in agreement?
yeah,
Okay.
yes.
I'll slow down. Okay. Next is the Board of Health review and possible vote to support Massachusetts Department of Public Health Excellence Grant. Katie, do you want to,
Sure. So, Barnstable County has received the MDPH Public Health Excellence Grant for cross-jurisdictional, can't talk today, sharing. We provided all the information in the packet about the grant, what it does. Simply put, we would be receiving free services from the county to help us run some of the programs that we just don't have the staff to do. There was some discussion on, it's called the HAC call, the Health Agents Coalition for Cape Cod. The most needed resource for this grant at the moment would be help with hoarding cases, housing issues, kind of being a point person to help us on a lot of those public health projects that we just don't get the bandwidth to necessarily put as much input into as we really need. Hoarding's been a really big issue since COVID started. So this would be basically free labor to help our town. It does require a vote of the Board of Health. If the Board of Health does vote to approve it, we need to check with administration because it may need to go to selectmen for approval as well, unless they believe that Joe can sign it. So it's kind of a two-part support system from the town saying, yes, we'll use this grant. It doesn't cost the town anything. It doesn't require anything on our part. It's just a free money for the regional collaboration.
What's hoarding?
I'm sorry?
What's hoarding?
Hoarding is, there's different types of hoarding. It's basically an accumulation of stuff. It's when big piles within someo's house.
never throw away
People that
newspaper?
won't throw things away and
For
they're
10
hoarding
years.
things.
How would they find that out, though?
A lot of the time, it's the fire department we get referrals from when they go in. Any of
Reported
DNA.
by a friend, you know,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
elder
Yeah,
services.
neighbors,
Yeah,
neighbor.
absolutely.
So how would the mechanism go?
So typically, we get a report from either, a nurse, a fire station, the fire department, excuse me. A neighbor will go and try to make contact with the individual. Sometimes it's tough if they own their own home. We want to make sure that they're living in safe conditions. There's no squalor, that they have, free access to their egress. Sometimes with hoarding situations, they find out their plumbing isn't working. So then we, work to address some of the other squalor conditions that they live in. But they're tough. It takes up a lot of staff time. You have to be very compassionate, and it's a very stressful, multi-department event to try to help some people.
Would we get involved at the Board of Health on that situation?
We do, yeah. Well, at the staff level, we do on your behalf.
It's sad, yeah. I just have a question. This cross-jurisdictional sharing coordinator, that would be for
That's the county. They're
the county?
Yeah,
Okay.
the counties. So basically, you would be voting to support the county's grant and receive the services. That's really all this vote would be. The county's handling all the paperwork.
So this is what you have to submit, this form on the back?
Yes, yep. So Pam, if you choose to accept it, Pam would sign it this evening, and then we'd touch base with administration, because I don't know if it would have to go before select board as well, or if Joe, as the administrator, would be able to sign it as well. So this, by signing it, you're just saying that you agree to receive the services if we want them, and we don't even have to. If we find out that they're not offering hoarding, they're offering something else, and we don't want it, we don't have to accept it. It's just to give us the opportunity, if we want to receive the free services, we can.
Any questions? More questions? No. Do I hear a motion?
I
I didn't have to
move
say
a
the word.
motion to accept the assistance from the county with the MDPH Public Health Excellence Grant pending potential approval by the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Second? All in agreement?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
So I'll have you sign it, Pam, before
Yep.
we go today. And if it gets voted down by the Board of Selectmen or by Joe, then it's just, it will be null and void. You can't see them
Okay.
voting it down, but.
And new business hearing 146 North Westgate Road. I don't see anybody.
So you'll read that whole note, public
Oh, okay.
notice.
On behalf of the property owner, Newpro is requesting the Board of Health to review and support an application of the State Plumbing Board for a variance from the State Plumbing Code 240 CRM 10-10, 7, Chapter 4. The applicant is replacing an existing tub with a walk-in shower. Due to the location of the plumbing at the property, conversion to the 2-inch drain is not possible without extensive demolition. The installation would utilize a code-compliant pan and no more than 2.5 GPMs shower head to in compliance with the variance guidelines.
So this is one of the plumbing code variances that you've only seen 2 or 3 of these. It's not actually a code that falls under the Board of Health, but the plumbing code has it written in that anytime the state hears a plumbing code variance, that has to have support first from the Board of Health. So it's really more of a technicality. You're not approving a variance, you're just voting to allow the application to go to the state for review by the plumbing board. It doesn't happen that often, but you have seen a few of these. I don't know if you remember, I think 2 years ago you had a few right in a row. So it's kind of a unique situation that's not your code, the plumbing code. You're just referring to say they can go to the state for review. We did touch base with Tom Davis, our plumbing inspector, and he had no issues with it.
Is there any questions?
No.
I don't have any.
Okay. Is there
I-
someone to make the motion?
I move a motion to approve, to support the request for variance from Massachusetts Plumbing Code 248 CMR 10.10 at 46 North Westgate Road, and we do ask the health director to contact the state regarding no objection by the Board of Health.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Health Director, do you want to give your monthly report?
Sure. So unfortunately, a little bad news from what I have in here. We were supposed to have a health inspector start yesterday, but unfortunately on Friday, we received notification that the town of Chatham offered him more money and flexible hours. So he unfortunately withdrew at the very last minute, which is pretty tough on staff. We were really relying on his help this week. So unfortunately, we're back to the drawing board with the health inspector position. On better news, Outer Cape Health has made a fantastic donation of rapid tests for all of our employees. So we've distributed kits that contain 2 rapid tests per kit to all the employees. And we do have some extras for some of the seasonal employees coming on. So we're really appreciative of Outer Cape for that donation. Carrie, my senior health agent, and I have both finished our ICS 300 training, which is required trainings for the emergency management and response. We both have one more. We have 400 left, and then we're completely done with all of our emergency response training, which is great. We are in the process right now of piloting Food Code Pro, which is an inspectional software. Carrie, our senior health agent, actually received a grant to have a free trial for 6 months, so we're within that trial right now. She is loving the software. It's sped up the inspections significantly. It eliminates paper. It's approved by the state to eliminate all the paper trail. And she actually has been working with the company so well that they've asked us to pilot a tobacco inspectional software and hopefully a pool inspectional software. So she basically takes an iPad out. It prompts you for every step of the inspection, takes pictures. It's a really great tool that's improved our inspections and time management for sure. This is a little old. I had to get this done for the packet before, but I did attend the joint meeting between FinCom and Board of Selectmen on March 10th. And both boards were very supportive of the full-time health inspector position. I did attach the information that I provided to them in your packet in case you were interested for what I
Yeah.
submitted.
Who could say no?
And that's all I have for my report.
Okay, and correspondence, West Harwich Save on Gas, copy of the tobacco violation.
Yep, so I wanted just the board to be aware that we did fine Save on Gas. We received a report from the county who helps us with some of our inspections that they did sell to a minor. The investigator helped, they have I forget the name of the program, but it's, they have minors under 21, where they send into a store, try to buy tobacco. And the minor that was with them was only 19. They carded her, confirmed that she was only 19, and still sold her cigarettes. So we did send them a fine. The first fine for sale to a minor is $1,000, and it goes up. If it happens again, it'll be $2,000. So hopefully they learned their lesson.
You get the $1,000?
Not yet. They're still within their appeal period.
Is there a time period on that?
So they have a set amount of time to appeal.
Okay. Wow. Interesting.
Okay,
They
permits?
carded her and they still sold it to her. Good luck with that one.
Permits, vote to accept or deny.
So the only one, I just wanted, one comment would be, Pelham on Earl would be pending pre-open inspection. That would be my only comment.
Okay,
Is that the Pelham House that's taking over the
So it used to be the Commodore Inn.
Commodore, right? Yeah. Did that sale already go through?
I believe so.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but I believe it did.
Do I hear a motion pass the permits listed?
I'll make a motion to pass the permits.
I'll move a motion to accept permits with the condition that Pelham on Earl passes a pre-opening inspection.
Thank you.
Okay. Second,
Seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Is that it? Any other?
So I sent an email out. We unfortunately have to change the date of our April board meeting. We have a conflict, selectmen are meeting the same night. That's the night that we're supposed to meet jointly with the Agricultural Commission, so we need a little more space than other meeting rooms have. The only available date anywhere around that is Thursday, the 21st. Does anyone see an issue with that meeting date? I have to let the Agricultural Commission know so they can get it. It'll be at 6:30, it'll be in this room.
I'd be here right at 6:30, right?
Yes.
All right. I am set to close on Thursdays until 6:30 at work, though I can probably,
As long as we have a quorum,
Yeah.
and then if you wanna join us after or remotely, just let us know.
okay. I mean, am I allowed to meet here when I get out as long as we have a quorum when we start?
Yes,
That works for me.
okay.
Yeah, no problem.
As
Matt,
long
are
as you're okay with that as the chair.
Oh, yes, yes.
Just, down the street. I get out at, usually I'm there until like 6:30, 6:40. I gotta be there until the last patient
Yeah,
leaves. It's the
that's
closing
fine.
nurse, so.
Matt, are you okay with that? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I would make a motion to adjourn, or move, is it move a motion or make a motion?
We actually don't move the motion, to move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, okay.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
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 All right.
All right.